Shadow work is supposed to heal you. Supposed to. But for millions of people right now, it is doing the exact opposite. It is making them worse. The practice meant to free you can also trap you deeper. Carl Jung himself warned that meeting the shadow is not the end of the journey. It is the most dangerous part of the beginning, and most people skip his warnings entirely. There is one specific mistake hidden inside this work, one that disguises itself as genuine growth, that does not just fail to heal you, but actively builds a stronger, darker, more untouchable shadow. I will reveal it before this video ends, and when you see it, you will recognize it in yourself, in people you admire, and in the spaces you thought were safe. Shadow work gone wrong. In the next few minutes, I will walk you through the 5 most dangerous mistakes people make with shadow work. Mistakes that do not just slow your progress, but strengthen the very darkness you are trying to face. Stay with me. This one is important. Before we talk about what goes wrong, we need to be precise about what shadow work actually is, because most people begin with a misunderstanding that sets up every mistake that follows. Carl Jung introduced the concept of the shadow as the unconscious repository of everything we have rejected about ourselves, not just the dark impulses, the rage, the jealousy, the greed, but also rejected gifts, the creativity we were told was useless, the sensitivity we were shamed out of, the ambition we were taught was selfish. The shadow holds everything you buried just to survive. Shadow work, then, is the practice of turning toward what you have turned away from. It means sitting with your shame, your repressed anger, your forgotten pain, not to indulge it, but to integrate it, to make the unconscious conscious, as Jung put it. This is not a casual practice. Jung compared the encounter with the shadow to a moral challenge of the highest order. It demands honesty, it demands courage, and it demands something most people dramatically underestimate. Safe, slow, contained ground. Containment, without the right conditions, shadow work does not illuminate, it floods, and that flood is exactly where these 5 mistakes lie. What I am about to show you next will challenge the very way you have been approaching this, because the first mistake is made by the most intelligent, most motivated people in the room. But this first mistake, it is the one that traps even the most intelligent people, and it is this: thinking about your shadow. Instead of feeling it, here is what happens. Someone reads Jung, they learn the vocabulary: projection, persona, anima, integration. They become expert at describing their shadow. They can tell you exactly which childhood wound created which defense mechanism. They can name their pattern with clinical precision, and yet nothing changes. This is called intellectualization, and it is one of the most sophisticated defense mechanisms the ego has ever invented. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Notice what Jung said: make it conscious. Not analyze it, not label it, not explain it. The shadow lives in the body, in the tightness in your chest when you are criticized, in the heat that rises when someone gets what you want, in the numbness that appears when you are supposed to feel something real. Intellectual understanding without somatic, emotional engagement is just the ego wearing shadow work as a costume. It looks like growth, it feels like growth, but the shadow underneath stays perfectly untouched and unexamined. Now that you see how the mind protects itself from real transformation, if this is resonating with something deeper in you, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. There is so much more to uncover, and mistake number 2 is darker than most people expect. But here is where it gets more disturbing. If intellectualization is the first escape route, romanticizing the darkness is the second, and it is arguably more seductive. You have seen it. The person who discovers shadow work and suddenly begins to celebrate every dark impulse as authenticity. Rage as power, cruelty. They stop filtering their cruelty and call it radical honesty. They indulge their selfishness and call it boundaries. They stop caring about others and call it healing. This is not shadow integration, this is shadow inflation. Carl Jung was explicit about this danger. The goal of meeting the shadow is not to become it. The shadow contains valuable energy, the raw fuel of creativity, assertion, and desire. But that energy must be integrated, not unleashed. Integration means adding shadow energy to your wholeness, not surrendering to it. Think of it this way. Fire is a powerful force, but fire that burns everything is not freedom. It is destruction wearing the mask of liberation. The person romanticizing their darkness often has one crucial blind spot. They believe they are finally being real, when in fact they have just replaced one mask with another. Instead of hiding their shadow, they are now performing it. And while this distinction may seem subtle, the psychological consequences are profound. What comes next reveals exactly how these two mistakes combine to create something far more dangerous, and what happens to the nervous system when you push past its limits. Stop and think about this for a second. Most people approach shadow work like they approach a workout: more intensity, faster results. They dive into their deepest wounds without any preparation or support. No containment, no grounding, no anchor, just raw, unfiltered descent into the unconscious. And what happens? The nervous system floods. Old wounds do not just surface, they reopen. This is called re-traumatization, and it is one of the most documented dangers in trauma-informed psychology. Going too fast does not release the shadow, it amplifies its power. The nervous system has a capacity. When you push past that capacity, when you recall traumatic memories without regulatory support, when you sit in dissociation and call it depth, the psyche does not integrate, it fragments. Judith Herman, the Harvard psychiatrist whose research shaped modern trauma therapy, was emphatic. Healing requires pendulation, moving between the wound and safety, between darkness and light, not a sustained plunge into the abyss. The conflict between the will to deny horrible events and the will to proclaim them aloud is the central dialectic of psychological trauma. Shadow work done right is not about how much darkness you can survive. It is about how much integration your nervous system can hold. Rushing does not make you braver, it makes your shadow harder to reach, because a flooded nervous system shuts down and the shadow retreats deeper. What I am about to reveal next is perhaps the most counterintuitive mistake of all, because it involves what you lack before you even begin. Here is where the story takes a dark turn, because the fourth mistake is not about what people do during shadow work, it is about what they do not have before they start. Most people who practice shadow work do it alone. No therapist, no mentor, no community, no anchor. They open the door to the unconscious, and they have nothing to hold onto when the floor disappears. Alone, no anchor, descending. This sounds dramatic, but it describes the psychological reality for a significant number of people who attempt serious shadow work in isolation. Jung himself insisted that the individuation process, the journey toward wholeness that shadow work is part of, requires a guide, not because individuals are weak, but because the unconscious is genuinely disorienting. It does not follow the logic of the waking mind. When you descend into the shadow alone, there is no external reference point, no one to tell you when you are dissociating, no one to reflect back what you cannot see, no one to help you distinguish between a genuine breakthrough and a psychological crisis. The most dangerous shadow work is the kind done in total isolation. Research in attachment theory supports this clearly. Healing happens in the context of relationship, not in a vacuum. The presence of a safe, attuned other is not a luxury. It is often a clinical necessity. The mirror needs a witness to make the reflection meaningful. And yet, the fifth mistake is the one that surprises people the most, because it hides inside what looks like remarkable success. Let me pause here because this next mistake changes the entire picture. The fifth mistake is the most subtle, and in some ways the most dangerous of all. It is the mistake of identifying with the shadow rather than integrating it. Here is the difference, and it is crucial. Integration means I have anger. I can feel it, understand it, and choose what to do with it. Identification means I am anger. It defines me. It justifies me. It is who I have decided to be. When you become your shadow, the shadow has already won. This is what Jung called inflation. When an archetypal force takes over the ego rather than informing it, someone discovers their repressed aggression and begins building an identity around dominance. Someone uncovers their hidden sexuality and makes it their entire personality. Someone touches their wound and starts curating it like a brand. In each case, what began as a sincere desire to heal becomes a new cage. The shadow has simply flipped positions. Instead of being repressed beneath the persona, it now is the persona. The shadow can become a prison, even when you believe you are finally free. New cage, same shadow. And now, there is one final layer beneath all five of these mistakes, a hidden mechanism that ties every one of them together. That makes each mistake not just more likely, but almost inevitable for most people. And it is where we are going next, because what I am about to show you makes everything so far look simple by comparison. Now forget everything I just said, just for a moment, and consider this single idea. All five of these mistakes share a common root. They are all at their core strategies of the ego to avoid genuine encounter with the shadow. Think about it. Intellectualization keeps the shadow at arm's length through analysis. Romanticizing transforms it into something the ego can be proud of. Rushing past wounds means never truly sitting with them. Isolation removes any mirror that might show you what you cannot see. And identification with the shadow gives the ego a new, dramatic identity to organize around. The ego will do almost anything to avoid real transformation. This is not weakness, this is the normal function of the ego. Jung understood that the ego's primary job is continuity, to maintain a stable sense of self. Genuine shadow work threatens that continuity at its foundation. It says, the self you have built is not the whole of you, there is more, and that more is profoundly uncomfortable. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The ego resists this, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. Every mistake we have discussed is the ego running a different program to protect the existing structure. Understanding this does not eliminate the risk, but it changes your relationship to it completely. And it brings us to the place where these mistakes do their most serious damage, something even experienced practitioners often miss. This next part makes everything we have discussed look simple. Here is what nobody tells you. When you make these mistakes consistently, you do not just fail to integrate your shadow, you actively feed it. Feed it. Every time you intellectualize instead of feel, the shadow learns to hide behind your eloquence. Every time you romanticize your darkness, it learns to wear your language of liberation. Every time you rush and re-traumatize yourself, the psyche builds higher walls around the wound. Every time you work in isolation, the shadow has no witness, and what has no witness cannot be metabolized. Every time you identify with shadow content, you lose the observer's perspective, the one voice that could actually integrate it. Each mistake feeds the shadow. This is the cruel irony the title of this video points to. The mistakes do not just waste your time, they create a more sophisticated, more defended, more strategically camouflaged shadow. One that knows how to use your spiritual vocabulary against you, one that wears your insights as armor. A fed shadow does not disappear, it evolves beyond your ability to see it. This phenomenon has a name in Jungian psychology, the negative inflation of the shadow complex. When the shadow accumulates psychic energy through repeated misdirected attempts to engage it, it grows stronger, more autonomous, more able to run your behavior beneath the level of your awareness. Now, what comes next is the segment I have been building toward since the very first sentence of this video. The one mistake hidden inside your most genuine attempts to heal. This is the content I promised you at the very beginning of this video. The mistake that hides inside genuine growth, the one that even trained professionals fall into. It is this: projection. Not the classic form of projecting shadow content onto others. This is its subtler, more dangerous cousin, projecting the need for healing itself. Here is what this looks like in practice. You have done real work, you have sat with discomfort, you have seen patterns, you have changed behaviors, you feel cleaner, lighter, and then, without realizing it, you begin to see your unfinished shadow work reflected in everyone else. The person still in denial, you can see their shadow clearly. The unhealthy relationship, you can diagnose it perfectly. The friend stuck in resentment, you know exactly what work they need to do. Seeing others so clearly. And in that moment of clarity about others, your own shadow slips back into the unconscious, unexamined. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Therapists experience this as countertransference. Teachers experience it as pedagogical superiority. Practitioners experience it as spiritual bypassing through shadow projection. The most advanced shadow moves through you as the ability to see everyone else's darkness. You believe you are healing. You are actually exporting your shadow onto the canvas of other people's psychology. This is the final, most sophisticated defense the ego manufactures. Comment projection below if you have ever caught yourself diagnosing someone else's shadow while your own slipped quietly away, because what comes next is the antidote, and it changes the entire direction of this practice. So what does real shadow integration actually look like? If not thinking, romanticizing, rushing, isolating, merging, or projecting, it looks quieter than you expect. 1. Feel first, analyze second. Let the emotion arrive before the explanation. 2. Integrate, do not perform. Shadow energy serves the whole self. 3. Move slowly. The nervous system needs rhythm, not flooding. 4. Find a witness. Therapy, trusted others, genuine community. 5. Maintain the observer. You are not your shadow content. Real shadow work does not announce itself. It does not require an audience. It happens in the moments you choose differently than you would have before. When you feel the familiar surge of rage, And instead of suppressing it or performing it, you get curious about it. When you recognize a projection, and instead of acting on it, you bring it home. When you notice your shadow wearing your spiritual language, and you stop, breathe, and look again. Real integration happens in private, small moments, not dramatic revelations. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this is the real promise of shadow work, not that you will become darker or lighter, but that you will become more whole. That the energy you have been using to keep parts of yourself buried will become available for living. Wholeness, not perfection, truth. The shadow does not disappear through integration. It transforms. It becomes a source of depth, creativity, empathy, and genuine strength, rather than an autonomous force running your behavior from the dark. If you made it this far and something shifted in you, comment shadow integrated if you are ready to stop making these mistakes and start doing the real work. Welcome to the Psyche Project. Shadow work is one of the most powerful practices in psychology. And like all powerful practices, it can illuminate or destroy depending on how it is approached. The 5 mistakes. Intellectualizing, romanticizing, rushing, isolating, and merging with your shadow do not make you a failed practitioner. They make you human. The ego's resistance to transformation is not your enemy. It is simply evidence that what you are touching is real. The question is whether you will keep making these mistakes unconsciously, or whether you will bring the same curiosity to your own defenses that you bring to the shadow itself. Know your mistakes, own them. The people who do this work wisely, slowly, with support, with an observer's eye, do not just become healthier, they become more available to the full spectrum of human experience, and that is worth every uncomfortable moment of genuine encounter. Comment shadow integrated if you are ready to do the real work. Welcome to the Psyche Project.